Hi all and welcome to this video financial modeling blog tutorial. As always, if you haven't already done so, please go to Video Financial Modeling's website and read the blog post. This will help you with this mini exercise or tutorial. Okay, the thing we're going to be looking at today is financial modeling, sensitivity and scenario analysis. Okay, so video financial modeling has seen many ways of performing sensitivity and scenario analysis, and from that experience we have found one best practice way of setting up sensitivity and scenario analysis. So let's have a look at this question. It says put in a scenario analysis manager to find what happens to the NPV of equity distributions when the below revenues and costs are changed to 55 and 40 respectively. Assume no tax and all profits are distributed to equity holders, i.e. there is no debt. Okay, so we've got a few assumptions here. The first thing, as always, we're going to set up is a bit of a timeline. So let's go and put year ending. And obviously the start date we've got here is going to be this one. And I'm just going to do an EO month formula and drag that out until December 2022 when we finish, okay? I'm going to format this a tiny bit, but you don't have to. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the revenue, costs, and then we set everything that we get in terms of profit. So revenue minus costs is going to be an equity distribution. And equity distribution. And I'm just going to copy that across. Of course, we're going to need an inflation index because these costs, and it should say real per annum here, and real per annum here as well, these costs and revenues are going to be inflated by the CPI index or RPI index, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. So if you're in Australia, it's CPI. If you're in the UK, it's RPI. It's probably something different in the US as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with 1 or 100%. I'm going to color that red because it's a unique formula. Then we're going to go that times bracket 1 plus the inflation. I'm going to lock that cell, F4, and we're going to drag this one across. Okay, so that's our inflation index. Now we're simply going to take our revenues. So F4, lock that one. I might even be cheeky and let's do a column lock on this times this one, and we're going to do a row lock on this one, and then we copy that one across. Okay, so we should see that our revenue is increasing. Now I did a column lock on the previous cell because what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that down. So that formula should work already. Now I'm going to put a negative in front of that because it's a cost, so it's an outgoing. And you'll notice that Video Financial Modeling do that in all their training courses. We find it's best practice so that you only have to aggregate the rows above. So in this example, all we have to do is take the sum of these two and we've got our equity distributions. Okay, so we've set that up. Now we want to run a few scenarios, and before we do that, let's get the NPV of equity distributions. Okay, and all we're going to do is use an XNPV, even though we could probably use an NPV formula on this because it's yearly. We're going to use an XNPV. We've got our cost of capital up here. I'm going to lock that, comma, and I'm going to grab the values here, comma, and those values correspond with these dates, and close bracket and enter. Okay, so that's the NPV of our equity distributions, and I'm just going to bold that and color it in yellow. Now what we need to do is we need to start implementing our scenario manager or scenario analysis manager. Okay, so the first step we talked about in the blog tutorial is that we need to put in a scenario selector. So I've just added some rows in there, so Shift Spacebar, Control Shift Plus will add some rows in there, and then we can put in 1. Okay, so that's our scenario selector, and we're going to put in scenario here. So we're just going to label that 1, that plus 1, and copy that all the way across. So we've got 5 scenarios here, and I'm going to color that in white and put a blue background there. Okay, we might even put a description here. Description, and just make sure these come out in black, and we can go base case, and a question asked us to change the revenue and costs. So this one, our base case is going to be 50 and 30, and our next case, so scenario 2, is going to be rev equals 55, comma, costs equals 40. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to put in our offset function. Okay, so firstly we're going to copy and paste these across. So Control C and Alt E S and V. This is using the old 2003 shortcut. Otherwise you can go Alt H V, and then I think it's V again off the top of my head. Let's try that actually. Copy, Alt H V, and yep, V for values. Okay, so we didn't need to do that. I'm going to change the formatting there, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter our offset formula. So here we have offset bracket, and our reference cell is simply going to be the cell that we're on already. So in this case it's C19. Then we're going to go comma, and the number of rows is 0, so we could put 0 there. We're just going to leave it out and go on to the columns, and then the columns is going to be the scenario we select. Now, remember in the blog tutorial we said if you've got gaps between this and this, you're going to need to add a number. So you might need to add a 1 there or something like that. Okay? Obviously we don't need to do that in this case. Now we can simply copy that formula down, and we can now put in our second scenario. So before we do that, what we might do is do some conditional formatting. So go up here, Control Shift arrow across, Alt H L, and then highlight rules and equal to, and we're going to select this one, and we're going to do that one, yep, and enter. Okay, so now you'll notice that if we change our scenario, we're going to change the highlighted cell, and we could do a bit more formatting there. So now what we'll see is that we need to put numbers in here, okay, and we can get around this, and we'll talk about getting around this in a second. But now our second scenario is run, and our MPV of our equity distributions has gone down. Now let's put it back to the first scenario, and okay, so scenario 1's this, so Alt H VV, so scenario 1, and then scenario 2, we've changed our revenues and costs, and that's our scenario 2, Alt H VV, and you'll notice that our MPV of equity distributions has gone down in scenario 2. And the main reason is that the difference between the revenues and the costs has decreased. Okay, so it was 20 in the first case, it's now 15 in the second case. Okay, so that scenario makes sense. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do another one, okay? Another scenario, inflation equals 2.5%, I think it was. Yep, 2.5%. And so now we're going to put in 3 and we're going to change this one so that it's a formula. And what we want to do is I'm going to copy and paste that one across so I've got a value there. We want to say, okay, if that, so we're looking in cell this one here, so we're in scenario 3, we're going to select this cell, so if that has nothing in it, what we want to do is we want to go comma, and we want to select our base case, so we want to select D19 in this case. Otherwise, and I'm just going to copy and paste this one, we're going to select this cell, or this formula, so we'll do a regular offset formula. So now we've got no values in here, no values in here, and 2.5% there, but we still have revenue and cost numbers. So that's great because we don't have to manually input every single formula down here. We just take the base case in the event there's nothing in the cell. Okay, so now scenario 3 is we have this 132 number, and that makes sense because our inflation's decreased slightly, so that means that our revenue and costs are going to be inflated less, and because our revenues are bigger than our costs, we're going to get a slight decrease in the MPV of equity distributions. Okay, that's pretty much all we have time for in this blog tutorial. If you like this YouTube video, please help us and click the like down the bottom of this YouTube video. Alternatively, what you can do is go to our website and share through some of the social media that we have at the bottom of the blog post.